The process of learning, unlearning, and relearning can change the world like no other. We welcome you to a new episode of our YouTube series about change making with Gurnoor Suri, a 16-year-old youth activist from New Delhi, India.
Hi, everybody. I hope everyone is keeping well and safe amidst this pandemic. Today, I'm beyond honored to have with me Nilu Pandey.
Thank you, Gurnoor, for having me. It's a great platform, and I'm really glad to be associated with you. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Okay, before we start with the conversation, I would just like to talk about Nilu's work, just giving an insight into her work as such. Nilu Pandey, a software engineer, lead, a frequent solo traveler, and a health enthusiast, believes in breaking stigmas and bringing about a change. It is this passion for change making that eventually led to the introduction of the Bleed Clean campaign founded by Nilu Pandey herself. Wonderful. If you could just talk about this campaign once, if you could take over before we start.
Yeah, sure, Gurnoor. Thank you. So basically, like you said, I go on frequent solo trips and all, and I basically go to extreme regions of India.
Right.
And in those regions, I experience myself being a girl. When I'm on my periods, I have experienced that, availability of period products is a big issue.
Right.
And to give you some more background, I have been also associated with some environment related work. And that also, like, I cannot unsee the fact that, the use of disposable menstrual products is, yeah, it ends up in our landfills. And it's recently I read that around 1 million of the waste comes from whatever 12% of the women actually use pads. So
Right.
imagine what would have happened if the entire Indian women audience was using sanitary pads, the disposable ones. What would happen to the earth? So these two are the major issue that Bleed Clean is trying to target. We are currently working on raising funds to ensure that we can cater to these two issues by distributing menstrual cups to the economically weaker sectors and targeting women in the long run. Like, for example, one menstrual cup they can use for about 4 to 5 years. So we'll be providing them with education and the menstrual cup itself to ensure that they are able to practice this sustainable way of managing their periods. And also it leads to many other causes, and the biggest that in my mind is the cause of education. Girls do not attend schools when they are on periods, and obviously the stigma and everything is another issue. So to target these few issues, I have went ahead and initiated a Bleed Clean campaign.
Definitely. That is so inspirational, Nilu. Just to add to what she just said, I think the cause of environmental upkeeping, that cause, menstrual hygiene, menstrual empowerment, as well as the whole concept of LGBTQ rights and feminism, it all goes hand in hand. It really can't be separated from each other. It's such an interconnected field. Look at it that way. Yeah, please you were saying something.
To add on to that, it's so mind-boggling that people think that only women, like only girls who associate, whose sexual orientation is female, have vaginas. So it's very they find it shocking when they see that a transgender person might also be needing these products. Or like you said, the LGBTQ group, that's also a whole different discussion. And this entire the I was reading, like, because of my campaign I've been reading a lot actively now. So I recently came across this fact that condoms were developed way before pads were developed.
Right.
And pads were developed by mistake. It was, and they were marketed for luxury. They were discovered during the World War. And it was because nurses were provided with these tissue papers which were super absorbent, which was basically supposed to observe blood of people on the battlefield, obviously. And nurses who were experiencing periods during those times, they thought that, okay, I'll use it for my, managing my periods because I have nothing else and it's a war field. What do I do? So they started using it for that. And when the war ended, the company who made these papers, the tissue papers, they started marketing it as a product for women to manage their periods, the modern women, they called it. And that too for, the people who can afford it, basically, the European women, the American women, the women going for work. So, and this happened, just to give you a rough idea, this happened somewhere in the mid 19s, like 1950 or somewhere around that. So can you imagine, it has only been 70 years or so that we have discovered pads. And that too, like my personal experience, when I got my first periods, my mom did not have sanitary pads at home. She uses towels, she uses clothes. So all of us might be the first generation to actually have access to period products.
Definitely.
Definitely. And that's such an empowering thing that we have. And yet it's so sad, like most of us, only 12% women have this access. It's a luxury. Something that is so natural, it's a luxury.
Of course, I think that's the beauty of conversations with such lovely women. I personally was not aware of such time period when it was developed and how it was developed. I think it's such I believe it's such an intriguing field to look at itself. Why was it developed? It was an accident, like you said. Something as natural as breathing was fitted with luxury, which is again so intriguing for the human kind to look at again. Like you said, Nilu, I've also founded a branch called ASAS, which was working on Buland Udan. It was a national NGO. It still is a national NGO. Founded by Anju Verma, and I'm such a big fan of her. I just took her interview as well today itself. So, so in Hesas as well, one thing that I really worked towards, or not one thing, couple of things that I really worked towards was availability. I completely believe that most menstruators today do not have access to menstrual products, like even if we talk about pads for that matter, or tampons, or even clean cloth, if you think about that. They do not have access to this. And most people that I encountered, because Buland Udan was working in Haryana and the village areas of Haryana and Uttar Pradesh, what they could sense over there, of course I was working online, what they could sense over there was that most people used things like rags, things like ashes. And just imagining the psyche, and B, the impact, the consequence of that on their health, on their vaginal health, on the overall health, was just so shocking. And again, the second thing we were working towards was menstrual empowerment, which we'll come to later. And the third one was, of course, inclusivity of the term menstruation. I believe we often use the word women when we talk about menstruation. Very common word to use. I think everybody I've met in my life, nobody's really using the word menstruators. And I think that in itself is a very major issue, because we still don't know about what exactly does the term menstruator include. I personally know people who identify as maybe males or men and still have the female system in their body, the female reproductive system, still have a uterus, still have an ovary, still produce eggs. And still they are being unable to access menstrual products because of the shame that goes with it. You're a man, how can you menstruate? So I think a very, very important phrase I could use over here is that not all menstruators are women. I saw women are menstruators as well. Women go through issues like PCOS and PCOD. Menstrual-related scientific issues. So I think it's a very important thing to look at. And that was our main aim, to introduce knowledge. And of course, talk more about periods in a shame-free way. That was a very important component of that. Before we begin with further discussion, one thing I would like to ask you, is
Yeah.
that what exactly was the main reason that inspired you? You know, you said that you come from a background where your mother herself used
Yeah.
toys. So how exactly did that change happen? How was that unlearning process for you?
Yeah, so actually, I got my periods in sixth standard, and I was in school. And like in the assembly, it was the day where you're supposed to wear the white skirt,
Okay.
and
Okay.
I had a stain. I had a big stain on my back, and I thought like I I went to the washroom. I checked it, and I was in an entire 1 hour of assembly. I was blaming myself, like, did something go wrong with me?
Mhm.
Because my mom got her periods very late. She got it when she was 16, and I got it when I was in sixth, which is around 13 or 12 years of age. I
Right.
got it then. And she, like I said, she didn't have the openness or the platform to, talk about it so freely. It was a
Right.
shame.
Mhm.
And she never told me. And so I have this big stain, and I'm standing there, and a teacher comes to me and she says, when is your period? And I tell her, she was my English teacher. So I tell her, the seventh period is the
Is the
English
English
period.
period. Okay.
And obviously she got the hint that, this might be my first time and I have no clue. So
Right.
she takes me to the washroom, and then she calls my mother and all of that. Fast
Mhm.
forwarding, I come back home, and we don't have pads at home. So
Right.
I have used clothes in my first period. Like the first 2 days, I used
Okay.
clothes myself.
Okay.
Yeah. And then we went and bought sanitary pads and all of that. And I remember, like, my dad would not buy it. Only my mom would get it.
Mhm.
And it would be all wrapped and packed in, I don't
Black,
know what all
black
bags.
polythene.
And
Right.
yeah, yeah.
Right.
So that's the kind of, so I've, sort of experienced this.
Mm-hmm.
Also, to add on to this, I come from a background where I'm completely empowered and independent. Like my both my mom and dad. My dad, I come from a army background,
Okay.
so the constant travel and being empowered to do your own things, the strictness of the army background. So coming from there and then experiencing this stigma with menstruation side by side, so
Right.
it was quite a flipping thing for me. And then when now that I've started going on my trips, like I said, I've seen that you will find chai stalls at, I don't know what all heights. Like at 3,000, 5,000 feet, you would find a chai stall, but you will not find a pad.
Right. Mhm.
So these are things, that have sort of somewhere subconsciously all come together to be able to, for me to, start this initiative of,
Campaign. Right.
we need a change. It's not
Right.
a stigma, it's a very natural process. And also, like you were talking about, there's a lot of, if the person menstruates, it's a problem. Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
And if they don't, then also it's a problem, which is like, you have to let people be. If she has
Of course.
PCOD, you need to let her be. If she doesn't, if she's going through a regular cycle of periods, that's also natural. Like, you have to let people be. From both ways, it's a stigma, having it or not having it, which is even more, I don't know, like, you can't live either ways.
Of course. The most unfortunate thing that I've come across in this journey of social activism is that leave apart these issues like PCOD and PCOS and even
Yeah.
this to a certain extent. Leave that apart. People don't even talk about periods in itself. So people
Yeah.
who are going through PMS, people who are going through extreme levels of PCOD and PCOS, they are completely unaware about it existing in itself. So
Yeah.
that's a very, very major cause of concern for us to look at.
Yeah.
Just sharing what actually gave me the inspiration to launch SRs and talk to
Yeah.
the head of Bulandodan to launch something like SRs and a branch for working towards menstrual empowerment was actually, I believe, I started my endeavor regarding social activism around, I think I was around 7, 10 years of age. So
Yeah.
very young back then. And
Yeah.
what began with simple, donation of toys and clothes, these
Yeah.
simple donations actually transformed into something very big, something as
Yeah.
big as what I have launched today. Of course, at a small scale, but still big for me.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Right.
agree.
So, what actually brought me to a conclusion that this is the need of the hour was I encountered a woman. She was living in Delhi only, in certain some of Delhi. I won't name the region, of course. And it
Yeah.
was a very random discussion. We were just talking about, I think, feminism, something like that. And what she talked about with me and my team of people who were volunteering there was that, Gurnoor, we go through something called PMS. Of course, she didn't know the word of PMS. She was saying, I have cramps, I have horrible pain, thigh pain, I have fatigue, I have breast soreness, I also have food cravings. Something
Yeah.
as something as normal as that as well. And I periods are the worst time of my life. Worst time
Yeah.
of my month. So that's what she mentioned. And I was, of
Yeah.
course, intrigued by what she was saying. And then she talked about how she was not in a position to work during those weeks or those days when she was menstruating. And because she was unable to work because of extreme fatigue, for example, her husband, the person she was living with, the person she was married to, he thought that she was making up excuses to
Oh my
not
God.
work.
Okay.
And because of
Interesting.
that, because of the patriarchal notion that
Mm-hmm.
you are the supreme power, the husband
Mm.
used to beat her and
Oh my
abuse her
God.
emotionally and physically. So she was a victim of domestic violence. And of course,
Because of periods.
because she was going through an extreme amount of PMS,
Yeah.
which in itself has to be consulted about to a gynecologist. But
Mhm.
keeping that aside as well, why was she made to be a victim of domestic violence? And imagine every month, almost every month, you're going through something like that, something so horrible like
Yeah.
that. Again, imagine the consequence of
Psyche.
the person's mental health and psyche, of course.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was what actually brought me to the conclusion that I think it's the need of the hour to work towards something called menstrual empowerment. And
Yeah.
even though when I launched this campaign, it was lockdown, the first lockdown that we had in Delhi, for example, but we managed to work online and we managed to conduct small donation drives. And, before I just want to mention one instance which will sprout a next discussion. Um, I believe back in 11th grade, in the beginning of 11th grade, I went and I gave certain pads. I was in a car, so I went, I had a pack of pads, Whisper
Mm-hmm.
Pads, if I could name the pad
Okay.
company. And even though I did not support the company, but I just had them, so I thought, why not give to
Yeah.
someone who probably needs it? Uh,
Yeah.
so I went to this group of women that was standing there, and I introduced the whole concept of menstruation to them. And of course, they were
Mm-hmm.
laughing. Of course, there were crowds around them who were just mocking what we were talking about because of the age.
Yeah.
But I was too used to it by then. uh,
Yeah.
and then I gave around half an hour to the discussion. I talked to them about what periods are, how to use it, how to open the pad, etc. And I gave them a good pack of around 40 pads. There
Okay.
were 5 women there. So
Mm-hmm.
when when I was in the car and mom was driving me, I realized that these women had kept the pads on the corner of the street and they were walking away.
Oh my
So
God.
the amount of 40 pads was gone to waste. And one thing I realized was just giving away pads or just donating menstrual
Doesn't help.
products will not change the world.
Yeah.
I could just give them 30 minutes where I could just talk to them about how to use the pads. I'd not
Mm-hmm.
talk to them about why it's important. And if they
Yeah.
don't use pads, they could go through terrible, maybe something with bacterial diseases. Anything could happen to them.
Yeah. Actually,
And
the thing is they do experience those things like infections and all of that. They
right,
experience it. I myself have experienced it. When you're living in a extreme situation
right,
and you are not managing your periods well, obviously your body goes through things. Problem here is that they don't want to recognize it. Reason being lack of education,
of
obviously,
course.
and then the shame. It's something that I should not talk about. This is something that I have to deal alone. So
Mm,
I have heard people deal with UTI infections using I
mm,
don't know what all in the kitchen. They put
right,
garlics, they put I don't know what all, but they will not
mm,
talk about it. They'll not visit a doctor for it.
right,
Which you rightly said. It's there's just so much shame attached to it that it's just something that should be. You are impure when you're going through it. You shouldn't touch this, touch that. and that makes you, and we have that education, our parents, thanks to them and the society around us, we still have a very different view. It makes me so lucky we are in the 12% which can sit here and talk about it.
Exactly.
But the women that you are referring to, they are, if one day they come to a shop and are able to buy pads, or they regularly use what is donated, that would be a win for organizations like such as yourself and mine. That would be what a victory would be.
Definitely. I think, especially with SRs, we were online,
Yeah.
we could easily donate pads and donate menstrual cups for that matter. But will they use it? Would it bring change? That was a very, very big question. And I think with all of these issues like child labor, even feminism, sexism, misogyny as a whole, all of these areas of concern, they all zero down to the whole issue of lack of awareness. People don't know about it. So the only means we could actually bring about a change is by making people aware, which is why we have this video and we're having this conversation itself. We want to make people realize the importance of talking about this by citing our own instances. So this brings up a very important discussion of menstrual empowerment. Awareness can be conducted or can be given to people through various means. And one means is through empowering people. Nilu, what do you think or anybody means by menstrual empowerment?
For me, first of all, the term menstrual empowerment is not something for people who are menstruating. It's like how everybody should know that education is important.
Right.
Or it's like a normal, everybody knows that you need to use the washroom. It is something as normal as that. Everybody should be aware of it. Again, like referring to my own personal experiences, in my house, I have a younger brother who's just 3 years younger to me. So, he's well aware of things. He's read his science. He knows. He's been around girls. He knows. Right. But when I'm having my periods, if I have to take a pad from the bedroom to the washroom, it has to be hidden. Like, why? Why does it have to be hidden? Why can't I ask him, can you please pass on that pad to me?
Right.
So although he's aware of it, yet, so this is menstrual empowerment for me. Everybody talks about it in a normal way, just like I want to have food. I want to take a leave because I'm experiencing menstrual cramps. Can you please pass on the pad to me? Can you please, I'm having a stain. Can you please help me get a pad?
Right.
Irrespective of your gender, irrespective of your age or whatever.
Right.
So that would be menstrual empowerment for me. It should be normalized. The stigma should have been removed by now, but okay, never is. You start when you start.
Right.
So yeah, that would be menstrual empowerment for me.
Definitely, that's a wonderful insight into the whole topic of empowerment. Nilu, one of my initiatives, Pabandi, it works towards the whole cause of empowerment, and that's universally true. We're not limiting ourselves to only one kind of empowerment. It could be sexual empowerment. It could be physical empowerment itself, consent. All of those things come under that. But about menstrual empowerment, I think what made SRs or any such initiative working towards empowerment like yours a wonderful initiative, Bleed Clean campaign. I feel like what makes these campaigns stand apart is their awareness or their implementation of empowerment. What I mean by empowerment is the right to be able to make a choice. So to be independently making a choice without anybody's coercion to accept something that they believe, any external constraints, to be very simple as I can. When we talk about menstrual empowerment in itself, what I've seen, Nilu, working with a number of menstrual activists, great people like you, I have come across people talking about how when they go to the ground level, they want to make a change. They have a brilliant mindset, a brilliant passion for making a change. But the way they implement it is extremely disempowering. What I mean by that is, people go on the ground and they talk about menstruation in a way that, for example, I'm talking to a person who's been menstruating for the past 20 years, for example. And she, or maybe I would say they, because I would love to use the word menstruator for that, they are going through menstruation for 20 years, and they have been subjected to multiple stigmatized topics and myths for years. They've been believing in something for years now.
Yeah.
How can I, as an individual, just go and tell them that what you've been believing in is wrong, and
Wrong.
prove my point that what I'm bringing, bringing with me from a modern perspective is right? Am I not kind of freeing them from the cage of orthodox culture and locking them in the cage of modern perspective?
Too modern. Yeah.
Where is freedom there?
Yeah.
One of my friends, she's a gynecologist.
Okay.
Come friend, I would say, very elder to me, but I still refer to her as a friend. What she tells me is that, I know all about PMS, I know all about PCOD, I know everything about that, but I still choose to not talk about that openly. I want to do it myself. And my first reaction was, why? And she was a very empowered woman, and she said that it's my choice. Can you stop me? I know about menstruation. Like, wow, that's a wonderful insight, like a wonderful perspective towards it. The reason why we want awareness to be there is because people should go to gynecologists. People should be aware of maybe if they have PCOD, they should know the symptoms. So the root cause behind why awareness is important is because they can access maybe menstrual products, they can access gynecologists, all of that. And she was being able to do that herself. But she chose to not talk about it. And even though I spoke to her a lot about it in a separate way, empathizing all of that, and she eventually does talk about it to a certain extent, which is a very wonderful feat. But when I go on the ground, I make sure that I never tell a person that you are forced to believe in what I'm saying, because that is not a moment.
That's just the same. That's just like saying, again, like maybe this example is not relevant to the conversation, but it's like saying that you've been believing in Hinduism all your life, and now I come and say that Hinduism is wrong, believe in Jainism.
Exactly.
You are still putting people into a box. They still have to make a choice here. They cannot continue doing what they want to do in a free manner. They have to make a choice. They have to, and it's a very sudden change. Like suppose like I have been, and it becomes a lifestyle, that's why we talk about, historians talk about, oh, this culture, where does it come from, what must have happened to that this thing evolved. People, like you said, if someone has been experiencing something each month for 5 days all their life for 20 long years, and you go and say that in the 20th year this is how you will act, obviously they are not, your audience is not going to listen to you. That is one challenge, biggest challenge that you will face. And second, like you rightly said, just telling someone that these are the do's and don'ts is not actually giving them the freedom of choice.
Definitely.
The freedom of choice is, these are your options, you do what you feel is right.
Exactly. And believe me, Nilu, because I worked on the ground, 99% of menstruators actually opt for talking about it, opt for using maybe menstrual cups, because I give them a choice. I use the tools of empathy. I use the tools of empowerment. I make them realize that, this is the benefit of using something like this. Now it's upon you. It's also a very fun way of, a very innocent and I would say in a completely right way of brainwashing them. This is the benefit. This is the benefit. You could use it too. I remember most people around me. I solely believe in the fact that change starts at home. It starts in the local level. So I do not need to launch a campaign as big as maybe the campaign by the UN agency worldwide. If I can impact maybe 5 people around me, I'm a change maker.
That's a win.
Exactly.
And talking about bringing change around your surroundings, just like again referring back to my mom, she now uses pads. She's like almost about to have her menopause, but she has now been using pads since I started my periods. She has switched to using pads. So
Um,
yeah,
that's wonderful.
change, like you rightly said, it comes from your home, and then it has a domino effect to your surroundings. So yeah.
Exactly. I think even I personally have faced people close to me, very, very close to me, who still choose to not talk about menstruation. And
Yeah.
I've learned the fact that maybe talking to somebody who's not open to talking about this will not be the solution to this.
Yeah.
I need to keep empathizing with them, because the whole principle of empathy comes from the fact, that there's a background to a person. That person
Yeah.
has been believing in something for years,
Mm-hmm.
years on end. I cannot change that immediately. It takes time.
Yeah.
It's an eventual change. So the
Mm-hmm.
whole thing comes from understanding that they come from an experience.
Yeah.
Something somebody is saying, or some reaction is because of a past experience. So that is, I think, actually the whole topic of menstruation or empowerment has brought about a major change in my personal life as well. I've stopped
Yeah.
acting in an angry manner. Maybe,
Yeah.
if you are saying, maybe I've met people who talk about um, patriarchy,
Yeah.
upholding patriarchal norms, and the
Mm-hmm.
only and I can't yell at them. I used to be the gunu who was, the feminist who would say sab galat hai, main hi sahi hu. But I
Yeah.
believed feminism and empowerment is so pure. It's so lovely. It just talks about empathy, talks about believing in oneself and other people around you. And the most amazing thing is, Nilu, where you're making a change, where I'm making a change, people are open, people are now listening to us.
Yes.
And there are numerous people who are now making a change. That's a lovely aspect
Yeah.
of, I think, this generation as well.
Yes.
So many.
Thanks to the people before us who have, sort of started, like you said, it's not a one night change. You don't get up and be like, oh, feminism and empowerment. But
Mhm.
slowly and steadily, people have, given spaces. Like my personal example, my mom didn't use it, but she allowed me. And,
Right.
she didn't get enough education, but she was very forceful since the day I was born that, you have to get education. So
Right.
people before us, generations before us, have given us the freedom, have given us the platform, and we as a generation are trying to make 100% use of this generation to give something better to the coming up generation. And that's the change that will happen. When you talk about any topic, talking about feminism specifically, like you said, people
Mhm.
often, if you say I'm a feminist, it's assume that you're just an angry person who's going to shout about anything that the person will say. But that's not true, right? You
Definitely.
are a feminist, you believe in equality, you believe in equal rights.
Mhm.
You are not saying that, apple and oranges are same, and if you say something different, I'm going to kill you. That's not what you're trying to say. What you're trying to
Absolutely.
say is these are both fruits, they have their own uniqueness, accept it, and let them be. You don't have
Mhm.
to be like the females are not, men are more superior, or transgenders shouldn't be allowed to live. These
Mhm.
are not feminism is about including everybody
Right.
and honoring everybody's choices. It's not
Mhm.
about an angry person coming and fighting because they have been suppressed for generations.
Definitely. I think the anger is also somewhere justified. When I was young,
Yeah.
I still don't feel like, why was I like that? Of course, I've changed my means of educating people.
Yeah.
But for that, I think that was also justified as well. I can also empathize with maybe the younger Gurnoor that I was. That
Yeah.
she angry because she's seen people around her go through something like hell
Yeah.
because of patriarchy itself. And
Yeah.
like, coming to what you just said about feminism and empowerment, some of the most empowered women I've met are
Mm-hmm.
homemakers. They
Hmm.
are mothers, they're
Yes.
homemakers, and they work at home. And it's
Yeah.
it's a general misconception that people who are housewives are not empowered, which is such a, I not to use any bad word, but it does
Yeah.
not make sense to me at all, because
Yeah.
that also comes from a choice at times. Can you make a choice?
Yes.
I know people who are so
Yeah.
educated and still believe that, okay, maybe for a mother, I want to stay at home, and that's completely fine if that is their
Yeah.
choice,
Yeah.
right? And
I
sorry, please.
Yeah, I mean, the whole homemaker concept, like, uh, I don't know. So there are nations, there are countries who sort of pay such women as well who are handling the household,
Okay.
because you can go out, do the work, bring home money, but there has to be someone looking and using that money in the right direction.
Mm-hmm.
Whoever is the homemaker, be it the
Right.
male, female, like whoever wears the pants in the relationship, so to say, is basically has more responsibility, because what in my opinion, they spend the most time at home. They spend more time organizing your personal life. They
Right.
spend more time with the children, with the pets, with the home, with the housemates or whoever. And so they are basically handling so many other things, and you are just, I don't want to demean anybody's position or
Of
anybody's
course.
work here, but you are handling a different thing. What this person is handling is, if not beyond, at least equivalent to what you do. So the superiority that the person who's earning money
Mm-hmm.
claims to have in the relationship, I have seen it, like you said, and it made me also very angry. But
Right.
now that I am in a position, and now that I've seen so much of the world,
Mm-hmm.
I understand that, anger is not the way to go. And like you said, and like Ehsas implements,
Mm-hmm.
giving freedom, giving choice, accepting what people have, where people come from, the experience they have had, that's the right way of conversing, and that's the right way of converting as well. you know
Definitely.
you
Mm-hmm.
you cannot just force and push people to beyond a certain limit. You can't do that. That's just
Undoubtedly.
incorrect in a way.
Definitely, you're
Yeah.
true. Undoubtedly.
Mhm.
Nilu, this is such an important conversation in itself. Um, I believe change happens like I mentioned at home. It
Yeah.
begins at the local level, and I believe that when I started off with the work that I am doing right now, I was a
Yeah.
person who believed in making change at the topmost level, being the most
Yeah.
famous person in India, making change. And now I feel like, is that actually bringing about a change? I have seen people
Yeah.
donating pads like anything. They have resources, they have a good mindset as well, but
Yeah.
um, change is not present there. And
Yeah.
change is so integral for society today. Change is the only constant, like we often say. It
Yes.
will transform society in itself for what we want to. Nilu, just to conclude this conversation, I want to talk to all the people who are non-menstruators as well.
Yeah.
Nowadays, when there are people like us who are menstrual activists, people
Hmm.
often talk about why men or non-menstruators don't talk enough about periods. And
Yeah.
what I realized was that people who complain about this, which is rightfully so, there is actually nobody educating men at the local level. I believe that
Yeah.
things like sex education and menstrual health education should start from the basic level, from I think from the third or fourth standard, according to me, because
You're
that
right.
is because that is when people are exposed to things like pornography.
Yep.
People start believing in that. So before that, we want to educate them. And like I just mentioned, education should start at the local level. I personally feel that most people are never told about menstruation if they're not menstruators themselves.
Yes, I have so many personal instances.
Mhm.
I remember I was in seventh standard, I think,
Right.
and we had this stay free company, the brand, come in and conduct a whole, like they made us watch a whole movie for 40-45 minutes,
Okay.
wherein there were two sisters, and the first one is elder and she has her periods, the second one just got it. And she's basically like, through that story, they were trying to tell us that, this is what will happen, this is how you can handle it. And specifically, like when the teacher came to call students for the seminar, she specifically said, all the girls, please go and do, go to the auditorium, blah blah blah. And for the boys, she said, yeah, like just go to the PT ground.
Right.
And there was so much curiosity, in the boys at that point. Like you said, pornography comes into picture,
Mhm.
and your hormones are acting up, and there was so
Right.
much excitement going on in the men or boys in the class. that later on, after an 1 hour seminar, when we came back with samples, again, we were all hiding it in our skirts. And we came back, and all the boys in the class, they knew that we've got something
Right.
special. And all of them were like looking into bags and XYZ. They were trying to figure out what have we got. And there was a whole like group discussion happening ki, kya mila hai, what is it? And because of the wrong, like you said, like the wrong learning, having exposure to pornography, not knowing what menstruation is, what is the natural process of it, just taking your education from the wrong medias, it leads to a lot of wrong interpretations. Because I remember, like in this incident, I remember a boy kind of found out the pads from my bag and all of that, and a whole scene happened. Towards the end of it, when the teacher asked him, "What do you think this is?" he said, "She is pregnant." So can you imagine, like, so generally when you menstruate, it's like the egg was there, no fertilization happened, so the blood flowed out.
Right.
Yeah, right. So that's the natural process. But he thought that pads are used because you're pregnant.
Right. Lack of awareness.
So, pornography and so right now it's like you have to, because we have not educated people on the right time, using the right methods, right platforms. They have learned something on their own because curiosity is, it takes you where it takes you. And now it's like you have to make additional effort. You have to make people unlearn first so that they can learn the right thing. Definitely. So yeah, that's a very important thing that you said. Yeah.
Definitely. Like, when I was I think I began menstruating around in 7th or 8th grade. I was 13 or 14. Okay. Maybe 12. I don't remember exactly. But okay. The real time that I actually kind of knew about what menstruation is in a right scientific way was, I think, 9th or 10th grade.
Okay.
So in 7th grade, what I was told by my school, my peers, my parents, or by society in general was that this is what will happen to you every month. What next? Why is it there? Why is it happening? Is it okay? Is it not okay? Blood was terrifying then. What is, blood is coming out of your vagina suddenly, after the 12 years of your life. How will you react?
When did it happen? When did it happen to you, if I may ask? Like, where were you? At home?
I was at home. I remember I went to the washroom and I saw my underwear. It had just like one drop of blood. So I was like, maybe there's some bruise, something like that, blood is coming out. But then my mom came in and, I believe my mom is a superwoman. She's transformed so much. Back then, she like you mentioned, she did not know about menstruation because coming from a background, she wasn't told about that enough. Now, of course, she knows much more because of me, because of my sister, all of that. And my sister is doing MBBS, so she also knows much more about gynecology in itself. So, I believe that even with menstruators, it is so misinformed. Like I saw this post yesterday on Instagram mentioning how I wish I was taught about menstruation. This is a blessing.
Yeah.
You'll be giving the right to give birth. And of course, it's a choice to give birth or not. But this is like, and also your blood is the purest form of blood that can come out of your body. It's not impure at all. It is very, very pure. So all of those things are missing with non-menstruators as well. I'll just mention one instance. I think I'm running out of time.
Sure.
Taking time out of your valuable period of time as well. I'm so sorry for that. But just to
no, it's fine. Go ahead.
Just to conclude, I feel men, people I've met, people still to a large extent refrain from talking about this because they do not know much about things like sex, things like gender, the difference between the two concepts, and menstruation as well. And I believe that it should start before maybe menstruators start menstruating. Back in 3rd, 4th grade, it should start from then, because mostly boys in our classroom, they started watching maybe adult films or pornography by the age of 11 or 12, and it is such a terrible representation of pleasure.
Yes.
And
It's so synthesized.
definitely, plus it doesn't talk about female pleasure at all.
Yeah.
So the learning.
There's a category called like female porn. I don't know, like I have went ahead and explored it.
Okay.
And it's basically soft romantic porn, which is not what one would want to watch, right? So there's a categorization there. I was just like, this thought was just coming in my mind and it landed up here. I was just thinking that areas are divided, like if it's about menstruation and you reach out to a man that, hey, so and so, your work is nice, I would want you to talk on my platform for menstruation. They'll take a minute and think that, is this mail wrongly sent? Is this the right mail that has come to me? Because I'm a man. So there are some biases attached to things as well. Like I'm a man, I cannot be talking about periods. I'm a female, I cannot be watching porn. Like these are certain, yeah. So these are certain biases that are there in your. We ourselves have also to have a lot to unlearn and learn as well.
Definitely.
I can talk about porn, men can talk about periods, and it is again a normal thing to do.
Absolutely. Rightly said. I think female pleasure is also extremely stigmatized in a society.
Yes.
We don't talk about that. It's a shameful thing to indulge in, which I think most people do indulge in anyways, but it's just hidden. Veiled. For some, so this is of course for reasons from their background, etc. But thank you so much, Nilu. That was a wonderful conversation with you. I had such I think I was so excited for it. Such a lovely time.
Me too.
Such a lovely.
You're welcome. You're welcome, Gurnoor, and thanks a lot for sort of inviting me, because I learned a lot about how my journey in Bleed Clean can be improved, because you've shared your experiences. So there are things that I know that I have to deal with, but since you have more experience in this, I think I'll be able to do better there.
Wow,
and so it was not just an information exchange. It was not just an information exchange. I really got a lot to learn from you, and I'm thankful for you to be providing this platform to
me. Similarly. Thank you so much again. If you would like to say something before we end, you could take over.
No, I think it's just that, like you said, menstruation and empowering women, empowering menstruators, like you taught me today, is one way, but like we've also touched based upon some few other topics, like for example female pleasure, or talking about feminism in general, and how people need to unlearn certain things to be able to relearn the right way of things, educating people at a very early age to bring a environment or a world which is well aware and everybody is accepting of everybody else's choices. So these are certain things that are really important right now, and it's good that these topics are getting heat. And I think we should keep working towards it, and let's try and change the world.
Absolutely. Just to add up to what Nilu just said, beautifully said, if Nilu can do this, if I can do this, all of us can. And like we've mentioned, change starts where you live, around your place, your surrounding, your environment. So start changing somebody, their mindset. Start understanding why certain things happen. Pabandi, the core idea of Pabandi is going deep into why things happen in the first place. That is where change can begin, honestly.
Yes.
So wonderful.